All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I apologize that I haven't been able to make videos as often as I used to, but it has been a busy summer for me, so that's just how it is. But anyways, we are back today working on the Vespa P200 I have here. I did spend a couple days cleaning up the frame. As you see, got all the grease and grime off of it, so it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and put the motor back into it. You saw in the last video I rebuilt this thing. And then the other things we'll be doing is replacing the fuel and oil lines and a couple cables here and there. And of course, I will be fishing a new green wire for this bike. So I believe this is the kill wire. Okay, and it always corrodes and breaks off because it's not copper. And it's some kind of tinned material or whatever. But this is exactly what happens. It gets all corroded and then it just breaks. And then I think you either get a no spark issue or you get or it won't turn off or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it's wired up, but I can let you know when I look at the diagram again. But yeah, we're going to be replacing that. So, guys, if you're ready, let's get to it. All right, I've got the motor sort of in position. I have my scissor jack in the middle of the frame, so I can move the frame up and down if I have to. But I typically just get this front of the motor high enough so the holes will line up on the front of the frame, and I put the bolt in from the other side through this way. Alright guys, I got the motor hung back into the frame. I'm going to torque the two bolts that actually secure it. The front bolt is supposed to be between 59 to 74 Newton meters. The back, since it is an upgraded M10 shock bolt, I think it's around 30 Newton meters is what it's supposed to be. So yeah, I'll do that real quick. Okay. Perfect. Alright, now I've got the motor all torqued properly and everything's still apart. I'm going to go ahead and replace the gear cables, also the clutch cable, which is down here. And then I'm also going to run the green wire, which is the kill wire, up through the frame and into the headset. So like I said, it's the green wires in this wiring loom here. And just take a look at it. It's completely disintegrated and just, yeah, pretty bad. So yeah, that's why we're gonna have to replace it. So if you bought yourself a P200, an old one, and this has never been checked or even looked at, I'm pretty sure yours is gonna be all messed up like this. So that's why you should go ahead and replace this green wire. All right, so next up, I'm gonna remove the headset top. It's just 4 Phillips screws on the bottom of the headset. Usually you have to detach the speedo cable up front to so the speedo can actually come up, because the cable's too short. So I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get to that point. Alright, see, I can't pull it up out of the headset or the fork because the speedo cable is still connected. So you gotta come up front here. Okay, so up here, see where the speedo cable connects right there? There's an 8mm bolt. Go ahead and loosen that, and you can get the speedo cable out. Alright, bolt removed, and remove the speedo cable. Just shove it back into the fork so the headset top can come up. Keep feeding the speedo cable back into the fork so the headset top can come out like this. And now it gives me access to all the wiring. Alright, so now that the headset top is removed, I'm going to go ahead and remove this horn cast, because there's a junction box behind here, which the green wire, I believe, connects to, and then from there it comes up to the headset. So I'll remove that real quick. It's just this Phillips screw here, and there's 2 screws behind that, and then there's 2 screws inside the glove box. So inside the glove box is these two screws, this one and this one. Move that and the horn cast will come out. Of course, the horn is actually connected to the horn cast. You can move it out of the way, or you can unplug it, whatever you want to do. Alright, now that I got the horn cast out of the way and the junction box opened up, I see my green wire. That's the problem. It literally corrodes from the front all the way to the back. So you have to replace this wire going in the loom. Usually I just cut it off and leave the corroded wire in the loom. Doesn't really hurt anything. All the other wires are fine. Just this one is not. So it looks like somebody already ran a section from here up to the key switch. I'm not sure why they didn't replace this while they're at it, but who knows. So it's a good idea before you actually work on stuff like this to get yourself a wiring diagram like I have here. Now there's two different ones. There's a before 79 and then after 79 wiring diagram. Difference is that the stator itself has two yellow wires coming out of it. And if you go to look on the diagram, this here is the junction box. Okay, you have a wire going from here all the way to the back where the CDI is, and you have a wire going from here to the ignition key switch, and the green wire on this side goes to the right handlebar switch for the kill switch. Alright, so like I said, we'll be replacing this green wire, and I'm also going to run a new section from here up to where the key is. Alright. Okay, as you saw, I pulled the section from the junction box here up to the headset out. I cut off the corroded wire that was sticking out of this wiring loom. I'm going to leave the rest of it in the loom because it's not really necessary to replace the entire loom just because there's a corroded wire in there. So, like I said, I'm going to leave it alone. So, as far as the wiring, I'm going to use my trusty old zip tie method, which is just a really long zip tie. I'm going to run it down here in that opening. It should go down through the frame and then end up right here where the strip tray is underneath it. For running wires, I always use my big zip tie like this. It's inflexible. You can attach stuff to it, and it's wide enough to actually make room for a wire to pass through. So I'm going to shove it down this little hole here, and I'm going to hope that it ends up under the seat. I'll keep messing with it until it does. And I believe it is already there under the seat. Alright, like I said, I'll remove the strip tray real quick. Just like that. And there it is. See? Nice and easy. Alright guys, now that I have my fish going down through the frame and under the seat, I'm going to talk about the wiring that I'm going to be using. So for all my bikes, I use 18 gauge primary wire. The stuff you get on Amazon works just fine. I think the factory stuff is 20 gauge, so it's actually thinner than what I use. But since this is actually what I do for a living, the wiring I use is a little better. It's actually called GXL wiring. It's more flexible and it's more durable at the same time. So, like I said, the stuff you get on Amazon works just fine. But before I run this wire, I'm going to cover it with this vinyl tubing. This is stuff you can also get through Amazon. I think it's PVC wire tubing or something like that is what it's called. There's a 4mm inner diameter. Just enough for one wire, I guess. And then, yeah, I'll cut it to length and then I'll get it ran. Okay, so you can see I've got my new wire ran from here under the frame to under the seat. I think it took me less than a minute. Granted, there's only one wire, but for those people who've never done this before, it could be really tricky if you don't have the right methods or tools or whatever. But anyways, now I have the wires ran. I'm going to cut the vinyl sleeving off. I'm going to have the bare wire come out alongside these wires here. I'm going to put a new vinyl sleeving over all of them together and have it all come out in one harness. Okay, now that I have the wire running through the frame, I need to run another wire off of this and go through here and up into the headset to the ignition switch. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these back and put a terminal on it. Alright, I'm going to put a female terminal on it. Just like that. I'm going to put a vinyl tubing on this wire too, and then I'm going to run it through the headset. Okay, you saw I just ran the wire through the front of the frame here and up into the headset. I have all my wiring back into the junction box. So you see in the junction box there's actually dividers in there. Make sure all your connectors are in a divider. You don't want them to touch each other and short out. As you see, this is the one I just added, this last one. This one's a different color. You got two wires, one going down through the frame under the seat, the other one going through this area and up into the headset. So now I can close this off and put the horn cast back on. So yeah, guys, like I said, if you have a P200 and you have never done this, chances are you're gonna have to. If not now, pretty soon. So yeah, keep that in mind when you buy one of these old bikes. Okay, so for this wire I ran up into the headset, it's this one right here. I'm running alongside this other wiring loom, and it plugs into this position on the key switch. Okay, right here. I've already put a terminator on it. So yeah, this part is done. All right, so for the wire I ran back here, here it is right here. I have it running through the frame already, out along the other wires. Like I said, I'm going to cover this back up with a thicker PVC tubing, so this section here to under the seat will be new. All right, here it is, all done. Got a new vinyl tubing around my harness here. I have the green wire also installed into it. The inside is all put back together, all taped up, nice and neat. Got the drip tray back in, so yeah, we're looking pretty good. So that's the wiring. I wanted to actually change these cables. Well, is that it? At least the inners. The two shifters and the clutch cable. So from the headset end, I'm just going to remove these cables. This is the gear cable, inner one of them. Take it off the actual guide on the tube. Just remove it. I'm sure the cables are actually okay, but you know, if I'm going to work on a bike and have everything all apart, I'd rather just change this, not have to worry about if they're good or not. They're pretty cheap, they're only a couple dollars each, so no reason why not to. So these are the two gear cables. Clutch cable is here. I'm going to have to remove the actual lever to get to it, and then I can just pull it right out. Alright, there you go. Alright, since I got all the cables removed, at least the inners, I like to spray the outers with this cable lube before I put in a new cable. Always a good idea, make things a lot smoother. It's good. Do the clutch and the two gear cables. Get that one over there. All right, now I'm gonna put in the new inners. Okay, I've got my 2 gear cables installed. I'm holding off on the clutch cable because I wanted to take this tube off and lubricate these contact points here and here. Okay, same with the throttle one. All right, if you've never done this on your P200 before, I highly recommend it. It's gonna feel like a new bike if you do that. It literally takes you 20 minutes to do this, so definitely worth it if you have all this stuff all taken apart already. Okay, so I went ahead and re-greased all the contact points on the shifter tube here. Got my gear cables hooked back up, the cable guide hooked back up. I also refurbished the throttle cable, so now it actually returns back to idle. Okay, the nice thing about the P200 is it actually does do that because of the return spring. But if your contact points are all gunked up, it doesn't work. So yeah, definitely do this if you've never done this before on your P200. So next up, I'm going to reinstall the levers, but I'm going to go ahead and grease up all the contact points here and here as well. And then this part will be done. Alright, I got the headset completely put back together, levers re-lubed, everything feeling as smooth as silk. So, everything perfect. There you go. Okay, now we can actually focus on reconnecting the engine. Alright, before I continue with this video, I just want to show off something cool I just got. This is a custom-made tool roll by Chrissy Hyatt of the Secret Cervix Scooter Club. Yes, you read that right. Secret Cervix with an S. This happens to be a Lambretta one, but I'm sure she can make you whatever you want. I always like to support my fellow scooterists, especially here in the US. So if you're interested in one of these, I'll leave her link down below. You can reach out to her, mention you saw this on this video, and I'm sure she'll hook you up. All right, now back to the build. All right, now we got all the new cables ran. I'm gonna go ahead and connect them to the engine. So for these 2 gear cables, there's actually a vinyl sheathing. It looks like this that goes over them. It's not just the cables, because these 2 cables actually ride really close to the exhaust. So without this extra protection, they may actually melt. So Dave at Scooter Mercado actually sells this little section of vinyl tubing just for this. So I'm gonna slip this over and get this installed back around the cables, and then we'll go ahead and attach it to the motor. So you have the little jacket around the cables, and it's going to route around the exhaust. There's a bracket here on the motor that actually holds the cables away from the exhaust. Okay, so get this all situated so they go into the actual cable guides back here. So that looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and run the cables through these little guides here, and then hook them back up to the selector box. So I have the cables ran right now to where they're supposed to go. I got it through the sheathing here, and this is how it's supposed to look. Just move this bracket around so that it actually moves the cables away from the exhaust, because it gets really hot in this area and you don't want to melt the cables. So as far as the cable routing, I believe it is the furthest cable forward is going to be the most inner back here. Okay, so obviously when you pull this cable here, it'll take it to first gear. Pull this cable here and it'll go up in the gears. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If not, there's a diagram online you can follow. I believe it's reversed for the small frames because that selector mounts underneath. Okay, so all right, now that I got the cables here, I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the clutch cable as well. All right, guys, so I have the clutch cable through the guide here and through the clutch arm. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put a pinch bolt on. So inside the pinch bolt, there's a brass bushing. You want to make sure the brass bushing is on top of the cable, not underneath it. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're not using the bolt to pinch the cable, you're using the bushing instead. I hope that makes sense. I'm sure if you actually took one of these apart, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll go ahead and put the pinch bolt through. That's that. The fourth hand tool here. Usually I do like that, and then I've had to fine tune it. I can with the bolt right here. You can do it looser, you can do it tighter. It's up to you. I like it where there's no play on the clutch cable. So yeah, like I said, I take up all the play on the arm before I tighten it. I never showed this step, but I'm starting to, because a lot of people have never done this before. So that's why I'm showing you guys. So get that situated there, and then I'll tighten it. The top of the pinch bolt is 8mm, and the actual bolt on the pinch bolt is 7mm. So it's a good idea to carry both those wrenches on you if you're gonna have a toolkit on your bike. Hard to do. I'm on this side, but I'm trying to show you guys. So snug enough. I'm gonna take the tool off, and then we'll tighten it up a little more. Okay, just like that. Good. All right, perfect. All right, so for the gear cables, again, same thing. I'm going to make sure the brass, see, look in there, that's a brass bushing right there. So make sure, like I said, it's above the cable and not underneath it, so that this bolt is not actually tightening the cable down. All right. So put these onto the gear cables, like so. Same thing with this one. Brass bushing in there. All right, just like that. All right, that's how it should kind of look. All right, so before I actually tighten these guys, you want to make sure the shifter is in the neutral position. Okay, so up here, you want to line up the neutral position, which is the two white dots there. I like to put a little piece of tape there just so I hold this thing in place. It doesn't move while I'm messing with the cables back there. back to the rear of the bike now. So I'm going to put my 4th hand tool here. I'm going to tighten each cable. See how that slack went away when I used the tool? Yeah, definitely pick yourself up one of these if you don't already have one. That's a little too tight. There you go, like that. It's a little tricky as far as hooking up the cables. You have to get used to it. But if you do it enough, shouldn't be too bad. Let's tighten this guy on temporarily right now. There you go. Okay. Do it to this one as well. All right, that's it, really. I'm going to give it a once over. Good. You don't want to kill it. Just make sure it's tight. Like that. Okay. So up here, it should be nice and tight and resting at the neutral position. So as far as the cable, the slack in the selector box here, you got to cut it down about here, and it tucks over these little clips here. And then same with this one. After that, I'm going to coat this entire thing with grease and put the cover back on. To cut your cables to length, you should definitely get yourself a set of cable cutters like this. I think these are the Park Tool ones, so they're kind of expensive, like 40 bucks. But you can get them as cheap as 10 bucks on Amazon. You should definitely use these rather than these, because when you cut them with regular cutters, it frays the cable. So it's kind of hard to solder it back together. And even if you were able to solder them back together, and say you had to change the cable when you're stuck on the side of the road, you leave a big end like this, you couldn't just simply pull it out. So yeah, keep in mind when you do this. The other way to do it is get a cutoff wheel on a Dremel and cut it that way. The idea is just to not fray the end of the cable. All right, so I'm gonna cut them to about this length right here. See how it leaves a nice end there. Got this one as well. Okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and solder the cable, the end of the cable, and put some flux on the end there. And then get yourself a nice torch, some cable obviously, some solder obviously, and just a little dab of solder on the end there. That way the cable won't unravel. Got the cables all cut and the ends soldered, so these guys should stay intact when it's all covered up. So yeah, I'm gonna move to the clutch cable now, and then we'll be done with the cables. As far as the clutch cable, I like to leave about this much slack coming out of the pinch bolt. That way it doesn't get caught in anything, in the moving mechanisms or whatever, and it still gives me enough slack to make some adjustments if I have to. So I've got the cable cut already. I got some flux on the cable, and then now I'm just gonna heat it up real quick and put some solder on the end, and that'll be it. Alright guys, so next up I'm going to throw the exhaust back on. It's just a simple clamp up here to the exhaust manifold, and then one bolt through the swing arm. Alright guys, I got the exhaust all bolted back up. Next thing I want to show you guys is how to install the rear brake cable. Alright, so for the rear brake cable, you obviously want to run the cable through the little adjuster up front here, and then you're going to run it through this little cable pinch bracket thingy, and then You're gonna push the arm forward like that before you tighten it. Okay, don't push it until it stops, just until it stops and let go a little bit, and then that'll give you some play on the brake pedal. If you need to adjust it, you can always use the adjuster on the front. So 13mm nut, tighten it up. So now push on the brake cable with your hand. Feels pretty good. Should be good to go. All right. Of course, you're gonna want to make some adjustments if you have to after you ride the bike. Make sure that's okay. So when you're done with that, bend the cable back forward. So it should look something like that when you're done. Okay. All right. Of course, now that I have the cables hooked up, clutch cable hooked up, I'm gonna go ahead and put the wheel back on. It's just a simple work your way around it. All right, there you go. You can go and bolt it back on. All right, so the wheel nuts, I usually do about 25 Newton meters. For the hub nut, I go around 90 Newton meters. Alrighty then, I got the wheel all bolts back together, torqued properly, got the rear hub nut back on, cotter pin in, and the cap back on. So yeah, this part is done. Alright guys, so next up I'm going to show you how to sort of rebuild or clean the carb. Sometimes even after you clean the crap out of this thing, it still doesn't work. Reason being is because the fuel passages inside the carb have gummed up. Fortunately, this bike was running, so I know the carb is still okay. I'm just going to go over the jets here, and there's a jet inside here as well. I'm going to change the float and the needle, because I believe the needle is bad on this carb, which is why in the other video you saw the crankcase fill up with fuel. I guess I left the gas on, but the purpose of the needle is to close off the inlet valve for the gas. So if this is not working properly, that's how it was able, the crankcase was able to fill with fuel. So first thing I'm gonna do is take the top cover off for the filter. Okay, there's a gasket here, you should replace that. There's a screen here. The rebuild kit doesn't come with a screen, so try not to mess this up. You have to reuse it. I'll leave that alone for now. Let me take the cover off for the float and the needle. So if your carb's not leaking or anything like that, I would suggest leaving this alone, because you need to order 2 gaskets here and here if you were to mess with that, because it doesn't come with a kit. Okay, so now that I have the top off here, like I said, I'm going to replace the float and the needle right there. Also replace the gasket there. So to replace the float, all you need to do is simply press out this pin right here. Float comes out and the needle will fall down. So like I said, the needle may be bad because the crankcase filled with fuel when I forgot to turn the gas valve off. So we're going to be replacing both those guys. And of course the gasket. So as far as the screen, let's see if I can get this off without destroying it. Otherwise I'm going to leave it alone because it looks pretty clear. Yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, so as far as the carb itself, I'm going to pull the jets out and make sure they're clear. I'm pretty sure these are, because like I said, the bike ran before I took it apart. This is the main jet right here. 118. You pull this off and then you can actually look through it. And there's a big, if you can see through it, then it's good to go. If not, get a piece of wire or something to poke through it. Make sure the passage is clear. That way the fuel can flow into the carb. This is, I believe, the idle jet, slow jet. It looks pretty clear, but just in case, I'm going to spray some brake fluid or brake cleaner in there, or car cleaner, whatever you have, to clear it out. Okay, leave that alone for now. You pull the high idle screw out. That looks pretty good. You could disassemble the slide, or you can disassemble the slide to replace the gasket that's in there, because the rebuild kit actually comes with that gasket, I believe. So do that real quick. This thing is under spring tension, so make sure you hold this cover on so this doesn't go flying across your shop. All right, so there you go. That's how that looks. Wait a second, did I put a gasket there? I wonder if there is a gasket there. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've worked on this thing. Okay, well, this still seems to be okay. Looks a little dry, but all right, take that apart. There's one more jet in here. I believe this is a choke jet. I'm not absolutely sure, but it's a good idea to make sure this is also clear. And it looks like it is, but I'll spray some brake cleaner through it. Yep, that's clear. Okay. So here's the carb without anything on it. I left the choke on because I usually that doesn't, like, you don't really have to clean that unless it's really bad. But yeah, like I said, there's fuel passages. See these little holes in the bottom of the bowl here. Sometimes they get clogged up, and you can just try to spray stuff in there and see if you can clear it. If you can't, then unfortunately you probably have to get a new carb, or you can try using an ultrasonic cleaner. I don't have one of those. I just find that replacing the carb is a lot less stressful in my life, so that's what I do. And the main thing on the P200 is, you see these three little holes on that little nozzle there. Those get clogged up too. So if those get clogged, it's pretty much impossible to unclog them. So you have to replace the carb. This is the air screw right here. I usually take this off and I kind of get all the gunk off of it. And then I screw it back in, and then all the way, and then back it up 2.5 turns. That's the factory setting for this guy. So I already checked this one. I believe it was screwed out 2.25 turns, so it's pretty close. Right, so you can take the spring off, clean all the gunk off the threads, and then you can put it all back together. So since I have this thing out, all right. Yep, good. All the passages seem to be okay, so I'm gonna wipe this thing down really good, and I'll put it all back together. All right, now that I got everything sort of cleaned up, I'm gonna go ahead and put it all back together, starting with the air screw. So get this little needle back together, and then you're gonna screw it in, like I said, all the way, and then back it out 2.5 to 2.25, 2.5 turns. I think this one was at 2.25, so it's 1, 2, there. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is put the slide back in. I thought there was a gasket that goes here, but I guess not. So it goes something like this. This goes into the slide like that, and this whole spring goes here. There's a little hook there. It goes something like that. And then the other end goes back onto the cover, and you can slide it back in. Make sure it still functions properly before you screw it back together. just like that. Okay, put the high idle screw back in. That one. So when you actually screw this high idle screw in, you'll see the slide actually start opening up. Okay, so you can screw it in until it starts touching, and then maybe leave it open a little bit, or screw it in until it's open a little bit and leave it like that. You're gonna have to mess with this once you get the bike started. Now I'm gonna replace the gasket, the float, and then the needle. So to do that, what you need to do is pop this pin out. Float comes out and the needle kind of hangs on like that. Move the gasket. Okay, I have a new float, a new needle. All right, first thing you need to do is put the gasket on like this. Okay, after that you're gonna hook the needle into the float before you install it like this. Okay, and then put it back on like that, and then put the pin back on. There you go, that's it. Okay, go ahead and put this guy back into the bowl. Actually, before you do that, you need to install the choke jet, this guy right here. Okay, don't forget that. Okay, there you go. Okay, 2 screws here and here. So I'm gonna pop this filter off and make sure the underneath it is not all full of sediment and gunk. And if it is, clean it out and then put the filter back on. But be careful of this filter. Like I said, the rebuild kit doesn't come with it. You'll have to find one if you tear this or whatever. So I'm looking under here and it looks pretty clean. So I'll leave it alone. Put the filter back on, or the screen, not filter. That's that. Okay, so as far as the top, I have the top here. I have the new gasket under here, like this. Put this over just like this. Okay, so for the screw, the carb rebuild kit actually comes with this little fiber washer and the new metal washer. So put those on before you install that. Okay, I've already made sure these jets are clear. There's the main jet and the atomizer as well. Screw the main jet back in, slow jet back in. Make sure that guy was clear as well. Okay, so on the bottom of the carb, this one was missing. The rebuild kit comes with this little rubber bumper. This goes here, okay? I don't think anybody's actually shown where that bumper goes, but like I said, this one's missing. And I've done this enough to know that that bumper goes there. So, put this guy over here, like that. That's it. All right, so now you can go ahead and reinstall this in the carb box. Make sure this surface is clean and also the carb box is clean. Make sure this slide still works, and it does. And the choke also, you can see that's clear. Yeah, this thing's good to go. We'll go ahead and reinstall it now. Okay, so for reinstalling the carb box and the carb, make sure your crank is in the closed position, okay? All right, don't leave it like that, okay? Because if you're working on little parts and whatever and you drop a screw in there, yeah, the case doesn't come apart again. So you don't want that. So rotate the crank so that hole is sealed just like that, okay? All right, so after that, what you want to do is put a new gasket on here, like this. Make sure it's the right one. Make sure all the holes line up, whatever. And then after that, you're gonna put some grease on the gasket, or I put some grease on the gasket. It helps with sealing it. Okay, get the gasket all coated in grease, and then install the gasket onto the case. Sometimes it takes some finagling to get it around these bolts here, or the studs sticking out, but try not to tear the gasket while you're doing that. Okay. Gasket all the way down until it meets the surface. Come on. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. If not, I apologize. There you go. All right, got the gasket all the way down. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is put the car box on. Before you do that, you want to put in the new fuel grommet, fuel line grommet. Okay, because once this is installed, it's gonna be really hard to put that on. All right, so for fitting the carb on, our carb box onto the case, you slip it in like this, and then the two bolts line up. Push it all the way down, make sure it's nice and seated. There you go, like that. There's a single screw that goes right here. Okay. All right, so next we have the gasket that goes up here. Again, it's coated with some grease on both sides. Make sure it's in the correct position. Like that. Now we can actually install the carb. So for the carb, you want to install it and then also have the slide connected to the oil pump. So it should look something like that, but what happened? Oh. You want to have the slide connected to the oil pump lever, which is like this, and then you're gonna hook it onto the pump at the same time. So, oh. Okay, like that. All right. After that, you can bolt it back on. So, like I said, it's these two funky looking nuts here, a lock washer and a washer. All right, got the carb all installed. Everything's bolted down pretty good. So we'll connect the cables to it now. So the first one's gonna be the choke cable right here, like choke lever. Okay, make sure it works. Good. Next is gonna be the throttle cable, which is this guy here. So the throttle cable, you gotta get it over the holder thingy. It's right there. like that. Okay, that's how it should look. Alright guys, before I actually continue, I want to make sure the fuel valve is flowing okay. And then I'm also going to replace these lines because they are really, really hard. So I'm going to turn the fuel on right now. See if it's flowing alright. I guess there's not enough fuel in there, so go to reserve. And the reserve shot seems to be okay. Yeah, so the fuel valve is okay, I think. Like I said, this bike did run before, but I'm going to go ahead and replace the lines, fuel line and the oil line. So I've got the fuel line off and matched it up with my spool of fuel line I have here. You're wondering what size this is? It's 5/16 an AC Delco fuel line. I do so much bikes, or so many bikes, that I need a lot of fuel line, so rather than buying piece by piece, I ordered the whole spool. It wasn't very expensive. I think it was like 20 bucks for the entire spool. So alright, so I got that measured out. The oil line I ordered from Scooter Mercado, and it comes in a 2-foot section. So I'll go ahead and put this one on first. Now, as mentioned in the previous video, I always use these auditor clamps to secure the oil line, because I don't want it popping off. And don't use zip ties, because zip ties shrink and they might fall off. Alright, you're there, use the little screw on one. So these clamps here, use this little crimping tool. So there's a little ear right there. You crimp this like this and tightens the clamp around the hose. Alright, so that's what I use. Get the entire kit from Amazon pretty cheap. So alright, nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. As far as the fuel line, I'm going to use one of these clamps here, because sometimes you have to change the fuel valve or whatever, and you don't want to keep using those clamps. You should be wasting them. So slip this guy over like that, and then tighten the clamp. Flathead screwdriver. Alright, now that I've got the oil line and fuel line replaced, I'm going to empty the gas tank because I'm going to be running premix in this thing on the initial test ride. That way I give the oil line time to prime, because if you don't prime the oil line, you might run the motor or maybe running the motor without lubrication, so you don't want to do that. To run the fuel line and oil line out of the frame, this is the oil line grommet, that's the fuel line grommet right there. Alright guys, I'm going to be dropping the gas tank in now. So I'm going to get my oil line and my fuel line going through the proper grommets. So when you drop this thing in, make sure your sight glass and your fuel lever is going through these two holes here. Okay, don't just force it if it's not going down there easily. Either your lines are in the way, or your sight glass, or the fuel lever. So just be careful. If you break the sight glass, it's going to leak oil all up in your bike, and it's going to be a huge mess. So, like I said, while you're dropping it down, keep pulling the fuel and oil line out at the same time. That way we don't get all kinked up under there. Just like that. Gotta get this bracket out of the way. Forgot to put the rear rack back on, so I'm gonna have to undo these bolts, bend it back, and then drop the tank in. Alright, I got my rear rack out of the way, and now I'm gonna do this again. Make sure the sight glass is not hitting anything. Fuel valve is out of the way. Fuel valve lever. Okay, there you go. Alright, I have my oil line hooked up here. I used an auger clamp on this side as well. I have my fuel line ran from down here underneath the carb box through that grommet into the carb. I have a hose clamp secured there. So the gas tank and the oil tank is hooked up to the carb box. I'm good to go there. Next thing I'm going to do is install this air bellow here around the carb box, and then over here. Hopefully it's not going to be a pain in the butt. Since it's used, it shouldn't be, but sometimes these things are freaking hard to put on. But we'll see about this one. Actually, let me connect this side first. Alright, not too bad since it's used. New ones, yeah, I'll be sitting here for a good half an hour trying to get that on. But that side's hooked up. I will connect this side. Alright, there you go. Not too bad. Now we can go ahead and put the shroud on. Okay, I have the shroud here. I pulled the spark plug out. We're going to go ahead and install this. Now, the fuel line on this side of the engine is really close to the cylinder, so you kind of have to force this shroud around that thing. Hopefully it goes on. There you go, like that. Okay, there's a single screw that mounts the front of this shroud onto the actual cylinder. The flathead screw. There you go. All right, now the shroud's on, I'll go ahead and tighten the spark plug back on. Okay. All right, now we get the wires routed. Go ahead and I usually do the spark plug one out, and then the other wires like this. I don't think it matters how you do it, but just have to get them where they're supposed to go. All right, now we're onto the back of the motor. I'm going to put this little boot over the harness. Put all these connectors through the little boot here. All right, so to connect the wires back together, it's pretty simple. You just have to match up the colors. So you have your two yellow ones coming from the stator. Here, here. You have a purple one. Here. And then black one is ground, which is this one here. And this green one that we ran from the front is going to run in this box and then right back out the back end of it. Like that, okay? Because this is the kill wire and it hooks up to this terminal here on the CDI to kill the motor when it's running. Okay, so that's good there. Let me go ahead and try to put these wires into the little dividers in the junction box. and then close that back up. Okay, I've got my junction box wiring all divided and into the dividers where they're supposed to go. You got 3 wires coming from the stator that go to the CDI, and the wire that I ran from the front also going to the CDI. So after you got those where they're supposed to go, you can go ahead and close up the junction box like this. Slip the little boot over the top there, and then the screw that goes in the middle. Okay, that's it. Now back here, I'm going to terminate my wire that I ran. I'm going to put a big spade on it. This. I could use heat shrink, but actually have the little protective sleeve that goes over them, so I'm going to use that. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and terminate the wire with this quick disconnect. That's how it's supposed to look. Slip that guy over. So there's a boot that goes over this whole thing right here, and this ground wire here actually grounds on the case. This wire down here is the neutral switch. I actually broke the prongs off of this one, so I have a new one over there I'll be installing. Then we can plug this guy back in. Okay, so now we have the 4 wires left to plug into the CDI. They all go through this boot first, and then you plug it in the CDI. And now I'll show you where they plug in. You got your 4 wires here, okay? Now on the CDI, it actually tells you what color plugs where, but it is in Italian. So, you got your white, which is Blanco. It says right there, Blanco. You got your red, which is Rosso. Green, which is Verde. And then your other green, come on, there you go. Other green, the other Verde wire, which is the kill wire going from the front. Doesn't matter, I don't think which one you plug this into, but I usually plug the kill wire on the end. After that, situate the boots that goes over the CDI to protect the connectors. And that's it. There you go, all done. Okay, I have the new neutral light switch right here. I can go ahead and thread that into the case. Now, if you want to make sure this thing is working, you grab yourself a multimeter, put a testing on both ends, set it to continuity, and I believe when it's in neutral, these two make contact, so the light will come on, obviously. And then when it's at first, they should not make contact anymore, and the light will go out on the dash. So I'm gonna leave that here because we'll probably have to adjust it. And I'll go ahead and put the selector cover back on, so this slips over, and then the fan shroud goes over this. So like I said earlier, I'm gonna put a glob of grease here. Like that. I'll clean that up and then I'll put the cover back on. I know I made a big mess. Cleaned it up a little bit. I'm gonna slip this guy in like this. Slip this guy on first, and then the fan shroud goes on in front of that, like that. Okay. Okay. As you can see, I've got all the wiring all put back to where they're supposed to be. I have my fan cover all installed. The selector cover. I have my neutral light switch plugged in. So everything's looking pretty good. Next thing I'm gonna do is, of course, put oil into the crankcase. And usually it takes about 2 of these bottles, and then it'll start dripping out of this hole here. That's when you know it's full. All right, as you can see, it started dripping out of the crankcase. So now I know it's full. Okay, so now I have everything all hooked up. I have gear oil in the engine case. The only thing we really need to do is put some fuel in this thing and see when we get started. So I am running premix on this thing so that I can actually give time for the oil line to prime up, because right now it's empty. All right, so if you're gonna go and ride with this thing with regular gas in there, the engine's not gonna be lubricated until this thing gets primed up. So, which is why we run a little bit of premix first. So running what I'm running, it's 3% mix, 32:1. I run that on all my bikes, and I've never really had an issue. So that should be good. tank up. There's not much gas in there, so I'm gonna have to move the lever over to the reserve spot down here. Reserve spot. If you're wondering where you put the oil, it's in this thing right here. This cap is a little chewed up, but yeah, the tank is actually full of oil. So as soon as I start the bike, I should start priming the line. All right, guys, so let's try to start this thing. Key on, run position, choke out, and reserve on. Hopefully this thing's already filled up with gas. So yeah, here goes nothing. Alright guys, you can see it started on the third kick, which is great. What's left on this bike is just the basic knick-knack stuff, like putting the seat back on, a couple little trim pieces here and there. Of course, putting the battery back in, the spare tire. I also got a new rear bumper for it, so that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I really need to explain how those go on. So yeah guys, that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys have enjoyed these videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all next time.